Hey everybody, welcome back to C&S Corvettes in beautiful Sarasota, Florida. This is your Corvette buddy Lyle here with some more interesting Corvette information for you this week. Now, before I get started, this is going to be a review of very basic, you've never had an old car or a sports car or a classic car information kind of video. So, if you're one of my regular viewers who knows all this stuff already, continue to watch for the entertainment value, but there probably won't be much in here that's going to educate you because you'll probably already know this stuff. And if you actually do still learn something, I won't tell anybody, okay? So, today I want to go through some of the basics of what you need to know when you enter into being a car guy later in life. If you didn't grow up leaning over a fender with your dad, changing the oil in a flathead Ford, then at some point, if you're watching this channel, you got interested in old, cool cars, or at least older, cool cars, which means you're going to need parts and you need to get them repaired. And an important facet of that is being able to speak the language well enough to make yourself understood. So when you pick up the phone and call your local Corvette or Mustang or Camaro or Barracuda expert, you can explain to them what your problem is in a language that they can understand and give you good information in return. Also, when you call looking for parts, it's very important to know which side of the car that part is on. That even has its own little thing that you need to understand. So, we're going to start at the very beginning. I'm going to roll through about 7 different things here that you need to familiarize yourself with to make your life and the life of the person on the other end of the phone or the computer who's trying to help you easier when it comes to repairing or procuring parts for your car. Number 1, first thing you need to do is you need to know what the difference is between left hand or right hand on your car. I can't tell you how many times people have called looking for a headlight or a wiper arm or something that they need that is a particular side, and they're standing at the front of their car with their phone going, "It's clearly on the left." See, there's the problem. Whenever you're talking about car parts, left and right is always determined by your position sitting in the driver's seat. So if you're sitting in the driver's seat and it's that headlight over there, that would be on the left when you're standing at the front of the car, but is clearly on your right when you're sitting in the driver's seat, that makes it a right-hand headlight. So, wherever the position is on the car from your relationship sitting in the driver's seat determines whether it's left or right. Oftentimes when I talk to people on the phone regarding things like this, maybe even you've talked to me on the phone looking for a left hand or right hand something, I always say we're talking left hand, driver's side, right hand, passenger side, to put those two together. But whenever you're talking about cars, left hand is always driver's side, right hand is always passenger side, because it flows from where you're sitting in the driver's seat. That's 1. Number 2, a lot of the calls that I get every day are, "Hey Lyle, my car won't start." Okay, we need to understand the difference between cranking and starting. So when you go outside and you get in your car, you put your key in or you push your button, whatever car you got, you're either going to hear nothing, you're going to hear a click, and then nothing, you're going to hear riggy-diggy, 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 or you're going to hear riggy-diggy, riggy-diggy, vroom. Let me tell you the difference. When you crank the car, you hear that riggy-diggy, riggy-diggy, riggy-diggy. That is cranking. So when I ask you, does the car crank? And you say no, that is one set of problems versus a car that will crank, but not turn over and run. That's what we're trying to, those are 2 very different sets of problems. So when we're talking to you on the phone, that's what we're trying to ascertain. So cranking is when the starter is rotating the engine and you hear it going over and over and over and over. Starting is when the engine fires, the starter disengages, and the engine is now running. Big difference. Now, if you just turn the key and get a click, that usually means that either your battery is dead or you have a starter or a starter solenoid problem. If you turn the key and you get nothing, it could mean a whole bunch of things. Usually that your battery is stone dead or that you have a blown fuse, a fault, or something else, which that's too much to get into in this video. But crank, riggy-diggy, riggy-diggy. Start, vroom. Big difference. When you're calling in, especially when it comes to Corvettes, it's important to know whether you have a coupe or a convertible. And if you've ever looked at Corvettes for sale online, you have seen, oh, it's a 1994 convertible. And you look at the picture and it is clearly a coupe. And you contact the person and say, hey, that's not a convertible. He goes, well, sure it is. The roof comes off. Okay, let's establish that in all Corvettes, except for the new C8, all Corvettes that had convertible tops, that were convertibles, were foldable fabric tops on a steel framework that you would fold away behind the car, behind the rear seats. That is a convertible. The new C8 has a hardtop convertible, wholly different, but we're not dealing with those. We're dealing with cars that you drive in every day right now. A target top, also known as a coupe, has a removable roof panel above the driver and the passenger area, but it is a solid roof panel that you can remove and put in the trunk. It does not have a folding, put-away roof assembly. So, if it's got a removable roof panel, it's a coupe. If it has a folding, fabric-covered framework that disappears behind the seats, that is a convertible. Now, in the old cars, like 60s cars, you could have gotten a hardtop convertible, which meant it didn't have a fold-away top. It only had a removable full hardtop with a big back window and everything in it. That's probably not going to apply to anybody driving regularly every day. The only exception to all this is the 1999 through 2004 Corvette Z06/hardtop that had neither a folding roof or a removable roof. It was a solid roof. Every other Corvette either has a folding top or a removable roof panel. Let's talk tires. People call up and ask about tires frequently because they want to know what's best for their car. Can they move to this size? Can they do this? Can they do that? Which I'm more than happy to talk about. But one of the things they ask frequently is, do you think I need new tires? Well, the car is in Seattle. I can't see it. Well, they're pretty old. Okay. How do you tell if you need new tires, guys? Well, here's a few ways to do that. Number one, check the wear bars on the bottom of the tread on your tires, okay? And there's a picture here that shows you what those wear bars look like. Basically, they're located at several points around the tire where, as the tread wears, those wear bars seem to rise when really it's just tread disappearing and getting closer to the wear bars. Once you get close to those wear bars, or God forbid hit those wear bars, it is time for new tires. They also do a good job of, if you're getting a weird vibration in your car, you feel this going down the street, if one wear bar on a tire isn't wearing like the others, that can mean something with your suspension or the tire itself. So check your wear bars, number one. Number two, check your date code. On every tire made in the last 15, 20 years, there is a embossed part of that tire on the sidewall, usually on one side of the tire, not both, that says DOT, Department of Transportation, has a whole bunch of manufacturing codes, and at the end of that are 4 numbers, okay? 4-digit code. That 4-digit code stands for the week of production and the last 2 digits of the year of production of that tire. So a tire made in the first week of January of 2014 would be 0114. You don't want tires that are more than 6 years old. So being 2022, any tire made before 2016 is probably due to be replaced regardless of what the tread looks like, just because the rubber of today ain't like the rubber from the 50s and 60s, where those tires, they might lose tread, but they'd still be soft pliable rubber sitting in the back of your garage for 35 years. Doesn't happen that way today. Tires today tend to dry out faster because of the different vulcanization processes they use and the different compounds they use. Once they are about 6 or 7 years old, it's really time to replace them. And here's a handy trick. If you don't know how much tread depth you have on your tires, and your tire is sitting in such a way on your car that you can't see a wear bar, I'll bet somewhere you have a penny. Here's what you do. You turn the penny upside down, so Abe Lincoln is upside down. Put the penny in the tread. Now, look at the penny from the side of the top of the tire. If you can see the top of Abe Lincoln's head, your tires are bald and it is time for new tires. If you can see Abe Lincoln's nose, your tires are okay, but they're getting worn. And if all you can see is Abe Lincoln's the bottom of his beard or just his body, you got plenty of tread, they're probably brand new tires. But everybody's got a penny, upside down Abraham. If you can see the top of his head, your tires are bald. And there's a picture here to show you the gauge on that. Next, you need to understand the difference between analog and digital gauges. Especially specifically with Corvettes, we have analog and digital combination gauges in the 90s and all the way through to 2013. You have analog versus digital AC controls on the C4s and C5s. Here's the deal. When I ask you, when you're like, my AC head isn't working, I say, okay, is it analog or digital? Digital means that it adjusts the temperature automatically without you having to do every little input, and it most likely has an LCD or LED screen in the middle that shows you numbers and stuff that is a data port where you can see what's going on. It was that way starting all the way back in '86 with the C68 air conditioning, and it continues all the way up through 2013. Analog means you have a series of knobs or sliders or buttons, but no digital display. Everything is button push or sliding slides or turning knobs. That is everything. That is analog. They're very different systems and they use a bunch of very different components. So you need to know which is analog and digital. Similarly, when we talk to you about your gauges, specifically on like the C90 to 96 C4s, there's analog gauges, which are the dials that go like this. And then at the bottom of that little amber orange LCD screen, you have what's like an information center. And when you go through your options and it tells you oil pressure and coolant temp and all that stuff, that is your digital gauge. The reason we make that differentiation is on C4s, the analog gauges tend to be, what's the word? Yeah, wildly inaccurate. So we always say, okay, get into your menu and tell us what the digital reading is, because that's a much, much more precise measurement of what the car is actually doing. Again, analog versus digital. On body panels, doors, hoods, trunks, there is a latch and there is a striker. A latch is the mechanism, the mechanical mechanism that captures the pin, the bar, the loop, whatever it is on the body panel, and captures it, locks it shut until you tell the latch to open and release it. That is a latch. It is a mechanical, actual moving parts thing. The striker is whatever is going into that latch to be captured. It can be a wire loop. It could be what looks like almost like an arrow, like you'd see on the strikers for a C4 hood or a C4 convertible top, where they go in and get stuck this way. That is the striker. Strikers don't move. They may have a spring on them or something like that, but they are not mechanical in any way. So if you have problems with your hoods, your doors, your trunk, and you need a piece, it's very important that you know the difference between a latch and a striker. Finally, here is my number one request to anybody who's going to take their car in to have it serviced for any reason. Please, please make sure that you put fuel in your car before bringing it to the shop. Unless you're there for fuel tank replacement, make sure that you have at least half a tank of fuel. Why, Lyle? Well, here's why. Because if you roll in on fumes, I put the car in the lift, I get halfway through and I have to go for a test drive, or we have to test run the engine, and your car runs out of gas, now I have to take a man off a job, I have to put him in a truck, I have to give him a gas can, I have to give him cash, I have to send him down to the corner to get gas, he has to come back, put gas in the car, we have to prime it, we have to start it, blah, blah, blah. That really disrupts our day, and more importantly, it gets expensive for you, because now I have to charge for that guy's time, a $135 an hour mechanic to go get fuel for you. You don't want to do that. So as a courtesy to the shop that you're bringing your car to, and for some serious financial self-preservation, let's go ahead and make sure you're at least half full. Of course, this does not apply if you're going in for a gas tank replacement, because that just makes more work for them. These are basic things that I compiled. Steve and I talked about this week, and I just made notes in the side of my notebook. These are all things that came up just this week in the calls and the emails that we've been dealing with. And by putting this out there to you guys, again, I'm sure most of you knew all of this already, but for those of you who didn't, I really hope that you internalize this and it helps making your experience as a Corvette or sports car or vintage car owner easier and finding parts much less fraught with problems and misunderstandings. If you have other things that you think we should add to this list, please add them in the comments below because I'd love to hear about them. Whenever I do one of these lists, I always miss something that like, oh yeah, and then someone will write in and tell me and I'll put it in another video. So I hope you found this useful. We really appreciate you watching, guys, and look forward to seeing you next week.